Today. Is there anybody out there?
I'm here. I'm doing great.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, today is March 7th, 2021, Sunday. It's a beautiful day out here in Chicagoland. And we have a interesting show today. This is going to be our first actual real show. The one we did last Sunday was an introduction to talk a little bit about what the show is going to be about. Now we're going to dive into our episode number 2, we'll call it, the value and the importance of feedback. So let me just go back a little bit and talk briefly about who I am. I am the founder of the Self-Achievement Network. I have been in the professional development and personal development field for many years after extensive work on myself and being involved in a personal development organization. And Diane.
And same. I was involved in that same personal development organization for many, many years. And currently, I am a sales director for a large chiropractic organization here in Chicagoland that's expanding across the country as well. Manage a team of close to 25 people. And I'm excited to be here to be talking about the value of feedback. Receiving feedback mostly.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, feedback is a big topic, and so we're going to get into that, and just so that everybody understands why we're here. The point is that we all like to strive toward a higher level of personal and professional development. That's something that's like innate in all of us, and I think that the goal is for us to work toward that, to work toward being a more conscious, more self-aware human being, because I think my experience is that we are all at the outer leading edge of evolution, right? So when we thought about putting the show together, it's kind of like, our job really as human beings is to strive toward, being and living at the highest, purest state of conscious manifestation possible. So like having a clear mind about what we're doing and having self-awareness about, who we are and like that, so that we can grow. So feedback is a big part of that. And one of the things that I've learned is that feedback is missing, I think, a lot in many of the programs that are out there in the world. When we were working in a personal development, personal growth environment, it was like that was the culture. And when we removed ourselves from that environment, that was one of the things that we realized, oh my gosh, there's so much missing. What do you think?
Yeah, there's so much value in receiving feedback on a regular basis. And, one of the things that I think trips a lot of people up, and it tripped me up for a long time, was when I was taking myself too seriously. So, receiving feedback is about really being open-minded and listening to the feedback, understanding it from the perspective it's coming from, and then realizing at the end of the day that it's okay. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do things that don't work, and that's a part of life. It's, are we willing to look at that and do something about it to grow, to continue to add more value into people's lives.
Mm-hmm. And to expand. I mean, feedback, if you think about it in general, feedback is, when it's like a two-way street, and it's a tool for change, to initiate change. So when we were involved in our, personal growth environment, it was that we intentionally put ourselves in that scenario, in that, so that we could receive the feedback. If you worked for corporations and maybe you've been in masterminds where you have been able to receive feedback, it's like I said, it's a tool for change, and it's a tool for rapid change. Because on our own, how it is, right? We can only kind of see ourselves in the mirror. And when we were working in that environment, and when we coach people, we can see and watch and observe their behavior, so then we can provide them the information, the feedback, so that they can initiate change. And the bottom line of it is so that the person that is asking for the feedback can grow. Why? so that they can feel better about themselves. And this is a vast topic. We've got some examples that we're going to share. And it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because you know how the mind is, right? The mind's like, it wants feedback, but when it hears a piece of feedback that is not really like, I don't know, friendly fire, if
Exciting.
you will,
Yeah, no,
right? It's kind of like,
oh, no,
ew.
not me.
Yeah, right. And so, yeah, being in that culture, in that environment for receiving feedback and learning to give feedback, which is another part of it, because anybody, you notice out there on social media, everybody wants to give you feedback, right? Even people in your family, your friends, everybody, we always want to tell people what to do. Hey, you did that. You said this. That wasn't
Everyone's
really
got an
kind.
opinion.
Right. And learning to give feedback is a skill, and just jumping right into it without having any experience can cause some heartache and pain and disrupt relationships and things like that. So it's a very delicate thing.
Well, and I think people can see that too. I remember one of the team members I had years ago. We do a lot of role play on our teams, and one of my team members was constantly wanting to give feedback to people on how, they did their role play and how they could improve. Except that this particular team member did not have the results to back up what he was saying, and so nobody really wanted to hear from this person. Not that what he was saying was bad. The feedback was actually pretty on point. However, because he wasn't really doing it himself, nobody really, saw a lot of value in it. And so I think that's one of the most important things that we learned along the way too, is that, it wasn't really appropriate for us to even start coaching people and giving people feedback until we started to make some real progress in our lives.
Yeah, to make changes, right?
Yeah.
So, great example, being on time, right? So how many times, right, have we had to learn that lesson until we got it, that being on time is a function of the willingness that we are to manage our lives and to arrange our lives and to be in control of our lives, so that when we make a commitment to be someplace on time, whether that's in a at a lunch meeting or some important meeting at work, or a meeting with friends, it's important. With the level that we make it important is really the level of our intention. And so, I mean, you've got a couple of examples, right?
Yeah, totally. I was forever the queen of being late everywhere. And in this, I was. And, I didn't, until I really started to think about it, it really, I didn't feel good about myself. And part of the reason that I was so insecure for a long time was because I didn't keep my word. And a lot of you probably get it. You show up late somewhere and you just don't feel good. There's no way around it. Even though there's a good excuse and all of that, it's just not a good feeling. And so I can remember, in particular in this organization, being late a lot and being talked to about it. In the beginning, it was, kind of like, come on, Diane, you got to get here on time. We make agreements. We're on time. We start on time. And I would still continually be a few minutes late everywhere I went. And until this one meeting that I went to, and I walked into a room and everyone was sitting around a conference table, and there was only one chair that was left. And that was right next to the coach mentor of this group. And I was cringing as soon as I walked in, because I knew I had to go and sit down right next to him. And he continued talking and, was addressing the group. And after about 10 minutes, he turned to me and he said, do you have anything to say to the group? And I apologized, of course, for being late. And he said, this has been going on for a while. And do you know what it really means when you're late? Like, what are you really saying to all the people in this room? And I didn't know where it was going. And he said, after a while, he said, really, what you're saying is you don't really care about the other people in this room. Like, their time's not valuable. You don't really care about them. And of course, that was really difficult to hear. I think I was in tears almost immediately, because I didn't, I obviously cared about the people. That's not really what my intention was, but I really got it. That's what I was communicating to them. And so it took that intense feedback, and I chewed on that for weeks and was upset about it for weeks, until I decided, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. And so what was recommended to me is, everywhere I go, act like I have to be there 30 minutes early. And then if I was my normal 10, 15, 20 minutes late, I was still on time. I was early. And so I started doing that everywhere I went. If I had to be somewhere at 11, I pretended I had to be there at 10:30. If I had to be somewhere at 7 a.m., I pretended I had to be there at 6:30. And as I was going through this, I developed this habit of just being early. And what I noticed almost immediately was I felt so good about myself being early and not having that being late. So just a really, really good example of one piece of feedback that changed my life completely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had a similar thing going on. So it was, I had been late continuously, and one of my mentors said, "Listen, if you were late one more time, I'm out." Because time is valuable. We know that. We all know that somebody else's time is like the most precious thing in the world. It's so the only thing that we have that is like it's so important, right? It's so valuable. So anyway, I think that the important thing to talk about here is about change, and we've been in trainings for a long time, and we talk about change. Yeah, we're going to change, and we're going to go get a motivational talk and all this other stuff, and then we leave that training, and then it just kind of fizzles out, right? And so it's really about having a vehicle, a tool, right, so that we can intentionally initiate change in ourselves, because we know we can't change other people. That's impossible. People have to want to change, and people can say they want to change all the time, and that's meaningless until they actually do it. So this whole being on time thing is just a small part of that. Like, so I facilitated many trainings. Diane has facilitated many, together thousands, and so as a trainer, as a facilitator, do you think that it's wise that that person is late? Right? So there's another totally different level when I would take responsibility for being up in front of the room to show people the example. And that's the thing. So as Diane was saying, she was showing an example of how people feel when we're late, and so it's a really crazy thing. Yeah. But the thing is about the feedback. So when I first got involved in the personal growth, the feedback that was given to me was kind of soft, right? Because I was, in a lot of ways, very insecure about who I was, and I would be in these environments and I would be very nervous. Remember that?
Yeah.
Right. So the feedback would be gentle. Now, come on, be on time, right? And then, in not just being on time, but it's like behavior, responding to, how in a work environment, we see this where, somebody's working and people are working on a project, and the next thing you know, it's like, people get into these upsets, right? And so that's another juicy environment for feedback, because
and growth.
Yeah.
Interested.
So if somebody's observing your behavior, the manager is observing the behavior, or the mentor's observing the behavior, they can see, interesting how, this person, Diane, I'll just use you as an example, just making this up, right? That she portrays herself to be this little angelic thing, and then all of a sudden the monster jumps out, right? So there's another opportunity there for feedback.
Yeah.
Now, can she hear the feedback? That's part of it.
Yeah. And I think, what's really important is the consistency. And like you're saying, put yourself in an environment, because in the beginning, the feedback was soft because we didn't really have any muscle built up to take in the feedback and really hear it. And after consistency of hearing some feedback and starting to work on ourselves, and hearing some more feedback and starting to work on ourselves, we could hear some really intense feedback. I remember we were on a trip with a few friends living in this house for a couple of weeks in Australia. And one of my, best friends, and someone I really looked up to, she gave me some pretty intense feedback at the end of the trip about how it was difficult to live with. because I was unelegant in a certain few areas. And it really stung, and it was really hard to hear, although we had such a close relationship and I trusted her. And I knew that where she was coming from was a loving place and wanting to support me in growing. And she was fairly elegant in the way that she lived her life. And so I really trusted that. And I went on and set up myself on a journey for the next couple of years to really change some of my behaviors so that I wasn't looked at in that way. I wasn't being difficult to be around, because that's not who I wanted to be. And so if she had given me that feedback when we first met, I think I probably would have been upset and left and never came back.
And that's what happens.
Yeah.
Right? The brain, the mind, the ego, whatever you want to call it, it's like resistant. It's like anything to do with feedback, it's like, no, I'm not, I don't know. I ain't gonna do that. Sorry.
Defenses come up.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't even breathe a piece of feedback, because I'm not gonna do it, right? But when you become interested in growth and personal growth, and that's like becomes the gold. It's the golden nuggets. It's like the juice.
We want feedback.
Yeah. And so
we were involved in the organization for a long time, and Domenic used to get a lot of feedback all the time.
Well, I was the bumblehead that said I wanted to be a facilitator, right? Because that was going to make me, look good. I didn't realize the path that I was about to go on.
Right.
The journey.
Opening yourself wide up for massive feedback.
So of course, I mean, when I first started, I was like, I was a tail wagger, I'm all excited, and I'm thinking, secretly in the back of my mind, I want to be a facilitator. That's what I want to do. I want to be the sage on stage. And so, then my life would work. And they were like, when I said to them, the guys that were running the show, like, that's what I want to do. They were kind of like, no, joking, that they were excited at the same time. I didn't realize that, anybody can just open a manual and read from it. And that's what a lot of these, a lot, I've seen it. People get up on the stage and they're going to teach people how to transform their lives, and they're reading from the manual, step 1, step 2, step 3. But, you can just see in their mannerisms, the way that they are, the way that they speak, the way that they carry themselves, the physical shape of their body, all that stuff, that they're not really doing it. So those are the kind of people. It's not like it's judgment or that it's bad. It's just that the path of becoming a true mentor and facilitator requires anyone who wants to do that to be the example. And it becomes very important because it's all about credibility. And for those of you who know me and have been worked with me in the Self-Achievement Network, that's what I talk about all the time, is credibility. Yeah. So it's hugely important.
And having a place to come from. I'm okay talking about some of the feedback because I've gone through it. And it's okay. It's okay to talk about. When we learn the most is when we mess up, right? That's when we learn the lesson. So making mistakes and messing up is part of it, and it's a necessary part of it. Again, on our own, we can only go so far in making progress. And we were talking about it earlier, being in it, putting yourself in an environment where you're receiving feedback, it just speeds it up big time.
Yeah. And I can remember, that I knew after I kind of figured out that there was going to be some feedback coming, I was like petrified, right, of hearing it. And I would do everything I could to cover, to act like I had my shit together. Right. So I've always, pressed my clothes, and I had my haircut perfectly trimmed, and everything was like, it looked perfect. But underneath, I was a total wreck. I was a train wreck about to happen. And again, I was just because I was scared and insecure. And when I began to learn that is really, the feedback is really the thing that we need more than anything if we want to speed up our growth, right? That to hide is really not the right thing to do. It's not the cool thing to do. It's to let yourself be vulnerable, open yourself up, right? So that's kind of, what we've been working on for the last several years is putting together programs. So we've got the self-paced program called Life Plan, and that is a downloadable course that people can do, and they can do that at and at their convenience. It's at their before they go to bed and read and type in, answer questions, and like that. So that's life plan. It also has a component for coaching. It's a little more difficult because the behavior isn't observable. So there's weekly calls and things like that. But the other thing that we're ready to launch here in about a couple of weeks is called the Achievement Webinar. We're going to be doing it live. And that's where people can kind of get in and interact with us and other people. And we can begin to see the behavior and begin to give people valuable feedback so that they can grow. Why? So that they can feel better about themselves.
And we're also going to be doing little snippets of the webinar in this group and during this talk on some Sundays. So you'll get to have little snippets of what it looks like to do an exercise and then get a little bit of feedback.
Yeah. There's lots of exercises that we've done and we've given to people to do so that they could have insights. And they're not always easy to swallow because, when I realized that when I was being unkind in a certain way, it was like I was embarrassed and it hurt and had a few tears. It's like, okay, I'm done with that one. I'm ready to learn that lesson and let it go. So anyway, it's 21 minutes in. Yeah.
What else do you want to talk about?
I think that's good. No, I think this is great. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah.
We know that the vast majority of people will watch this later. So from all of us here in the Self-Achievement Network and from the new show, The Evolution, which was being recorded also on podcast. So I'll put the link in there. And after we're finished, and you can listen to it while you're driving, you don't have to worry about going off the road or hitting somebody.
Right.
Texting and driving, right? Or whatever. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening.
Yep. It's been great to be here.
My name's Domenic.
My name's Diane. Have a great week. And
we'll see you next time.
Stay inspired.
And have fun.